During her study retreat, a classmate sent me a video. My fiancée was playing spin the bottle, and after it landed on two guys, she went into a room with both. When I drove 3 hours and knocked on that door, I never thought the quiet forest lodge 3 hours away would be the place where everything in my life cracked open. When my fiancée, Danae, packed her textbooks and told me she needed a distraction-free study retreat, I believed her. The logic was solid enough. The exams were coming up, and she said she felt overwhelmed at home. I agreed because I thought I understood who she was. The bet seemed simple. Give her space now, celebrate together later. But the question that stuck with me in hindsight was this. What exactly was happening out there when nobody was watching? The answer started to form on my phone late on Friday night. I had been cleaning the kitchen, trying to keep myself busy. A message popped up from a classmate named Lyndon. We weren't close, but we had been in enough group projects together to call each other acquaintances. His message came with a video file and nothing else. The lack of context made it worse. The video started shaky, like it had been recorded behind someone's backpack. There was loud music in the background and people shouting in the way they only do when the night has already gotten out of hand. The camera panned across a large living room filled with half-empty bottles and a group of students sitting on the floor in a circle. That alone didn't concern me. They were adults. People drank. Then I saw her. Danae was sitting cross-legged on the rug, hair pulled back, cheeks flushed. She looked nothing like someone preparing for an exam. She looked like someone who had slipped into a different version of herself the moment she crossed the county line. She laughed at something out of frame, leaned back on her hands, and took a drink from a bottle of something amber-colored. Then I saw the bottle spinning in the center of the circle. A game. A stupid, reckless game. The bottle slowed, wobbled, and stopped. It pointed straight at two guys sitting across from her. They stood up immediately. She hesitated for a moment, then let one guy grab her wrist while the other pushed the door of a side room open. The laughter around them grew louder. She walked into the room. The door closed. The video ended. For a long moment, I didn't move. I thought the file was a prank or a misunderstanding. Then Lyndon messaged again. You should probably come. That was all he wrote. I didn't reply. I didn't even grab a jacket. I just took my keys and walked out. The drive took me along dark highways and narrow mountain roads. My hands were shaking the entire time, but not from panic. More from the kind of anger that feels cold instead of hot. The forest surrounding the lodge was silent when I finally pulled into the gravel driveway. Midnight had already passed. The house was still awake, though. Music thundered through the walls, lights glowing behind every curtain. I walked up to the porch and knocked hard enough that the sound cut through the music inside. The noise dropped. Someone hushed the crowd. A minute later, the door cracked open just enough for a face to peek out. I didn't recognize the guy. He tried to close the door the moment he realized who I was, but I put my foot against the frame. I'm here for my fiancée. The guy didn't say a word. He just stepped back and let the door swing open. There were at least 20 people inside. Some were drinking. Some were lying on couches half asleep. A few were whispering in the corner. Most of them turned to me, confused, annoyed, or simply too drunk to care. I asked where she was. No one answered. I walked through the living room and toward the hallway where the video showed her disappearing. The first door was open, and a couple was arguing quietly inside. The second door was closed. I knocked. There was shuffling inside. I pushed the door open before anyone could stop me. The room was dim, and the air smelled like sweat and alcohol. Danae was sitting on the edge of the bed, looking startled, almost offended that I had appeared in a place she thought I would never check. The two guys from the video were standing near the dresser, pulling on shirts like the interruption had inconvenienced them. I didn't yell. I didn't demand explanations. The moment itself was loud enough. She stood up, trying to straighten her clothes. What are you doing here? She said, irritated rather than ashamed. I told her I saw the video. I told her Lyndon sent it. Her reaction wasn't guilt. It was shock that she had been caught, followed by a quick attempt to regain control. She claimed it was a joke. She claimed it was harmless. She claimed everyone exaggerated everything at these retreats. Then the two guys stepped closer, as if they needed to defend the situation. One of them said it was no big deal. The other laughed, asking if I was really going to make a scene. That was the moment the room felt smaller than it was. I told Danae to pack her things. She refused. She crossed her arms and said she wasn't leaving. People started crowding in the hallway, whispering, filming, enjoying the conflict the way people enjoy chaos they aren't personally involved in. I stepped out of the room to get space, but a guy in a hoodie blocked the hallway. He said I had no right to be here. I told him to move. He called for someone named Brenner. A tall guy emerged from the kitchen area with a half-empty bottle and authority in his stride. He said he was one of the retreat hosts. He said I needed to leave immediately. I told him I wasn't leaving without Danae. He tried to put a hand on my chest to push me back. The crowd started to form a circle again, this time around us instead of the bottle. The pushing became louder than the words. Someone knocked over a stack of plastic cups. Someone else yelled. The tension spiraled so quickly that even the people who had been dancing earlier now stood watching, as if they were witnessing the final act of a play. In the middle of the chaos, Danae came into the hallway carrying her backpack. She told Brenner it was fine. She would go outside to calm things down. When she stepped off the porch, her bag slipped from her hand. It fell open on the wooden planks. Among her books and makeup, something slid out. A second phone. Not her regular one. Not one I had ever seen. I picked it up before she could. Her face changed instantly. Not guilty, terrified. That was the moment I realized this night wasn't an accident, a lapse of judgment, or a stupid party mistake. Something larger had been happening long before the video reached me. People behind us started shouting again. Someone suggested calling campus security. Someone else yelled that the neighbors might complain. Danae tried to grab the second phone from my hand. I stepped back and walked toward my car. She followed me halfway across the yard, shouting my name, but I locked the door before she could pull it open. People started gathering around my car, banging the windows, yelling at me to give it back. I drove forward anyway, forcing them to jump aside as I pulled out of the driveway. The house shrank in the rearview mirror, but the second phone felt heavier every second. I didn't know what was inside it yet, but I knew it was going to blow open the rest of the night. I had no idea that this was only the first twist. The parking lot beside the forest lodge was unlit except for the moonlight cutting through the branches. I pulled into an empty spot near the exit, killed the engine, and sat there breathing hard. My pulse hadn't slowed since the moment her bag hit the porch, and the second phone rolled out like a confession she never expected to make. I locked the doors and looked at the screen without turning it on yet. The cold silence of the lot suddenly felt louder than anything I had left behind. I didn't want to look through it in the middle of a dark forest, but I couldn't drive another mile without knowing what I was dealing with. Before I could even press the button, I saw a movement behind me. A group from the lodge had followed me. They stumbled down the gravel path like they owned every inch of the property. Flashlights bounced around. Voices slurred. Footsteps kicked loose stones. At the front was Brenner, the self-appointed host who had tried to put a hand on me inside. He had a jacket on now, but the same authority on his face. Someone behind him recorded with their phone. Someone else smoked and shouted things I couldn't fully hear. It was clear they hadn't come to talk. They surrounded the car in a loose ring, tapping windows, laughing like this was entertainment. One girl leaned close to the passenger side and said something muffled. Two guys banged the trunk. They wanted me out. They wanted the phone back. They wanted to protect whatever twisted code they had built around that retreat. I was not stepping out. I held the second phone tighter and started the engine. The headlights burst on and cut through them. Some shielded their eyes. Some cursed. Brenner stepped backward but didn't move away fast enough. I eased forward until he finally stepped aside. When I reached the exit road, I saw Danae herself running toward the lot with her hands raised, yelling something I couldn't hear over the engine. She wasn't crying. She wasn't chasing me because she cared. She looked desperate to stop me from driving away with the phone. That alone told me more than anything inside it ever could. I pulled out of the driveway and kept going until the lodge disappeared into the trees. Only then, halfway down the forest road, did the adrenaline loosen its grip enough for me to pull over again. I turned on the phone. It vibrated with a burst of notifications that had been missed while the battery hid in standby mode. The lock screen was simple, a generic background, a default passcode pattern. I tried a few combinations and found one on the third attempt. The phone opened. The first thing that hit me wasn't a message. It was a photo. Danae in the same lodge weeks earlier, in the same living room, wearing a different outfit, surrounded by people I recognized from tonight. Her smile wasn't a guilty secret. It was familiarity, comfort, ownership. Like she had been coming here long before she ever told me about study weekends. I opened her message threads. There were group chats with names she never mentioned, plans for sessions, reminders about what to bring, inside jokes, and short clips of retreats I had never heard about. There were conversations with people I had never met. There were references to earlier nights that matched dates when she had claimed she was studying at campus late. I scrolled faster, fingers shaking again. There were voice notes, hundreds of messages, photos she had deleted from her main phone, and planning that stretched back months. Every line revealed something. Every line shredded the version of her I thought I knew. Then one thread stopped me. It was a chat with one of the two guys from the room at the lodge. His name on the phone was Jalen. The conversation history made it clear they weren't strangers. They weren't new. They weren't innocent. She had invited him to tonight's retreat. I kept reading. My jaw tightened. She told him she needed privacy from home. She told him she felt more free around this group. She told him she wanted the weekend to go like last time. That was enough to make my stomach twist. But the worst part wasn't what she said. It was what he said next. There were lines where he asked if she was sure her relationship situation was stable enough. There were messages where he said he didn't want any trouble. There were moments where he hinted that she needed to set boundaries. She replied with reassurance. She told him I would never know. It felt surreal, like reading someone else's life. As I scrolled deeper, the screen lit up again. A new message came through. From Jalen. He wrote on the second phone without hesitation, like he expected her to reply. The message popped up in front of me. Did he take the phone? I froze. Another message followed seconds later. If he saw the chats, I need to talk to him. Before I could react, the phone buzzed again. Third message. I'm not trying to start anything. I swear. Just tell him I didn't know. I stared at the glowing screen, feeling the forest air seeping into the car. The man she had spent the night with was reaching out through her secret phone as if he sensed she had lost control of the situation. Fourth message. I'll explain everything if he wants. This whole retreat thing is messed up. People didn't tell me the truth. That stopped me cold. People didn't tell me the truth. Not about what happened tonight, but about the retreat itself. There was more going on than infidelity. Something about how these weekends worked. Something hidden. Something protected. My thumb hovered over the reply button. I didn't want to respond, but I knew that ignoring him wasn't going to stop whatever storm was about to hit. I typed one short message. This is not her. She's not with the phone. This is her fiancé. The typing bubble appeared almost immediately. He replied, then we need to talk. I didn't answer. I turned off the second phone and drove straight out of the mountains, wanting to put distance between myself and that lodge before anyone tried to follow. By the time I reached the highway, the night sky had begun to shift toward dawn. The phone buzzed again, even though the screen was off. I forced myself not to look. I kept driving until I reached a quiet gas station on the outskirts of town. I parked, leaned back, and closed my eyes for a moment. But the moment didn't last. My own phone began to vibrate nonstop. Missed calls, messages, voicemails, notifications firing like sparks. Half of them were from Danae, half from numbers I didn't recognize. One was from Lyndon, the one who sent the video. His message was short. Be careful. They're angry you left with that phone. I sat there in the parked car, gripping both phones, feeling the weight of two worlds crashing together. Everything had escalated in hours, not days. Every layer I uncovered pushed me deeper into something I was nowhere near prepared for. And I hadn't even confronted her family yet. They didn't know anything. They didn't know what she had been doing on the weekends. She swore she needed space. They didn't know why she really left for these retreats. But they were about to. The sun began to rise behind the hills, casting long shadows on the pavement. I took a breath, turned both phones face down on the passenger seat, and started the engine again. Part 2's chaos wasn't over. It was only the hinge between everything I had discovered and everything that would explode next. The drive toward Danae's parents' house felt unreal, like I had been dropped inside a version of my own life that didn't match any memory I had of the past 3 years. I kept checking the rearview mirror because a part of me expected someone from the retreat to follow. The threats and the messages hadn't been explicit, but the tone behind them was clear. They wanted control back. They wanted silence. They wanted the second phone returned before anyone outside the group learned what those weekends were about. I wasn't returning anything. By the time I reached her parents' neighborhood, my pulse had steadied. Not because I felt calm, but because something inside me had hardened into a kind of steady focus. I walked up the driveway with both phones in my pocket. Her parents' lights were still on, even though the sun hadn't fully risen yet. They were early risers, always up before the neighborhood stirred. I knew this would be a shock to them. I also knew they needed to hear it from me before Danae spun it into something else. Her father answered the door in a robe, surprised to see me, but not alarmed. He opened the door wider and asked if everything was all right. I stepped inside without giving him a chance to walk me through the usual morning small talk. Her mother appeared from the kitchen, wiping her hands on a towel, and smiled as if she expected breakfast plans or good news. I told them I needed to speak to them privately. Her mother's smile faded instantly. They led me to the dining room, where morning lights stretched across the polished table. Before I said anything else, I placed the second phone on the table. They both stared at it, not understanding the significance yet. Then I told them everything, not with dramatic pauses, not in emotional bursts. I said it plainly, directly, with the same clarity the night had forced onto me. I told them about the video, the drive, the room, the confrontation, the group pushing me out, the second phone spilling out of her bag, and how the retreat wasn't a simple study weekend, but something far messier, something she had been participating in for months. Her father leaned back slowly, face rigid, eyes narrowing with every detail. Her mother kept shaking her head, eyes wide, refusing to accept what she was hearing. Before they could say anything, I unlocked the second phone and slid it toward them. Look for yourselves. Her mother picked it up hesitantly, hands trembling slightly. She opened one chat at random, read a few messages, then handed the phone to her husband as if it burned her. He scrolled, brows drawing tighter every second. When he set the phone down, he stared at me with something between disbelief and anger, not directed at me, but at the situation that had been dropped on his breakfast table without warning. She said she was studying, he finally said in a low voice. I know, I replied. Then the front door opened. Danae walked in. She didn't expect me to be there. She didn't expect her parents to know. She froze in the hallway, clutching her jacket, face pale with shock. Her mother stood from the table so fast the chair scraped the floor. What is going on? She demanded. Danae tried to act confused, tried to insist I was blowing things out of proportion, tried to claim someone had tricked me. Her excuses crumbled instantly the moment her father raised the second phone and asked her to explain the messages. Her face drained of color. Then she tried something else. She stepped toward the table, grabbed for the phone, and insisted I had hacked something, misinterpreted something, misunderstood the context. She spoke too fast, eyes darting between each of us as she tried to rebuild control in a room that no longer belonged to her. Her father told her to sit down. She refused. She tried to storm toward the hallway, but her brother appeared on the staircase at that exact moment. He must have heard everything because his eyes were already narrowed, expression tight. He wasn't someone who usually got involved in conflicts between family members, but this time he walked straight into the room and took the phone from his father's hand. He scrolled for maybe 20 seconds. Then he looked up at her. You've been lying to all of us. She snapped at him, yelling that he had no right to judge her, that this was between her and me. He raised the phone slightly and asked why the messages stretched back months if it was just a stupid game. She tried to tear it from his hands, but he stepped back, holding it out of reach. Her mother finally cracked. She demanded answers. Real answers. Not deflections. Not the half-truths Danae had always been good at spinning when life backed her into a corner. The tension in the room shifted from disbelief to something much heavier. Danae's voice broke, not from remorse, but from panic. She kept repeating that she didn't want her life ruined. She said I misunderstood everything, that it wasn't what it looked like, that the retreat had rules, that things didn't mean anything. The more she tried to explain, the more twisted her reasoning became. Then the second phone lit up again. A new message from Jalen. Her brother saw it before she could snatch the phone away. Jalen wrote, "Tell him there's more he needs to know. The retreat isn't what everyone thinks." Her brother read it aloud. The room went silent. Danae lunged for the phone again, but her father grabbed her wrist and told her to stop. Her mask fell completely then. The calm facade she had been trying to hold collapsed in an instant. She shouted that I was ruining her future, that her classmates would hate her, that the retreat group would come after her if things got exposed. That last part hit me. The retreat group. Coming after her. Coming after me already. Her father turned slowly and asked what she meant by that. She froze. She hadn't meant to say it aloud. I told them about the group chasing me to the parking lot. The banging on my windows. The yelling. The moment Danae tried to get the phone back with a desperation that didn't match someone who had nothing to hide. Her mother covered her mouth in horror. Her father told Danae to sit at the table. This time she did. The room shifted again. Her parents weren't angry now. They were frightened. Not of me. Not of the truth. But of the world their daughter had been living in behind their backs. The retreats. The pressure. The cover-ups. The second phone. The messaging. Her brother set the phone down gently and looked at me. What are you going to do? I answered clearly. I'm ending the engagement. Her mother began to cry quietly. Her father didn't argue. Her brother nodded once, jaw tense. Danae didn't cry. She didn't apologize. She didn't admit anything. She only whispered one sentence, voice trembling not from guilt, but from fear. They won't let this stay quiet. That sentence followed me out the door. I left her parents' house with both phones and a storm settling over every corner of my mind. The truth wasn't just about her betrayal anymore. There was something else, something bigger, something in the group itself that she hadn't dared explain. And I knew I hadn't seen the last of any of them yet. Everything that came after this would move faster. Much faster. Leaving Danae's parents' house felt like stepping out of a storm cellar only to find the sky darker than when I went in. My phone buzzed nonstop in my pocket, but I didn't check it until I reached my apartment. I locked the door, drew the curtains, and tossed both phones on the table. The light from the screen pulsed like it was alive, demanding attention. I sat down and took a breath before turning them over. My own phone had 7 missed calls from Danae, 3 voicemails, and a series of frantic messages. Some begged me to talk. Others demanded I return the second phone. Then, mixed among them, were messages from numbers I didn't recognize, likely from the retreat group. One message stood out. You don't know what you're doing. Another. Bring the phone back before things get worse. They didn't threaten outright. Their style was more ominous than direct, a warning implied through tone rather than stated in words. I ignored them and opened the second phone again. It felt like I was holding a live wire. Every piece of evidence inside shifted the ground under my feet. Then, another message popped up. It was Jalen, again. Can we meet? I need to talk to you before they twist this. Part of me didn't want to go anywhere near him. Part of me wanted nothing to do with anyone from that lodge. But I also knew that shutting him out wouldn't stop the collapse already rolling toward all of us. And he was the only one who had reached out without hostility. The only one who seemed more afraid of the retreat group than of me. I replied reluctantly. Where? He sent an address for a cafe downtown. Public enough to avoid trouble. Neutral territory. I agreed. When I arrived, the cafe was half empty. The morning rush had passed, and only a few people lingered with laptops. Jalen sat at a corner table, wearing a hoodie and looking a lot less confident than he had at the lodge. He didn't smile when I approached. He only nodded once and motioned for me to sit. I didn't know she was engaged, he said immediately, without waiting for me to speak. I wouldn't have gone anywhere near her if I knew. I'm not trying to get in the middle of someone's relationship. I studied him. He didn't seem like someone acting. He looked genuinely shaken. He continued, voice lower this time. She hid a lot more than her ring. The retreat group hides things too. They don't want attention from outside. They don't want anyone exposing what they've been doing. They have rules, messed up rules. They act like everyone agrees to them, but people don't understand what they're signing up for. I asked him what exactly he meant. He leaned forward. It's not just random hookups. It's pressure, expectations. You say no, they try to talk you into it. You say you're uncomfortable, they call you boring or weak. They treat the weekends like a closed world where nothing counts and nothing leaves the house. I thought back to the porch, the crowd, the way everyone defended Danae's behavior like it was normal, the way they came after me when I took the phone. He wasn't exaggerating. He went on. Some of us don't want to be part of it anymore. But if we leave, they threaten to smear us. They make it sound like we agreed to everything. People stay because they're afraid of being humiliated. It was a sick ecosystem, one built on peer pressure, secrecy, and the illusion that everyone was willing. So, he finished. When you grabbed that phone and drove away, you didn't just take proof about her. You took proof about the entire group. That explained the messages. That explained the panic. That explained why Danae whispered they won't let this stay quiet. I asked why he was telling me all this. He looked down at his hands. Because I don't want to be tied to any of this when it blows up. And it will. They're trying to silence you, but they're not as united as they pretend. Some people are scared. Some people want out. Some people are ready to talk. Before I could ask anything else, the cafe door swung open. Danae walked in. She looked exhausted, hair messy, eyes red but not from crying, from fear. She scanned the room and spotted me instantly. She approached the table with fast, unsteady steps. What are you doing here? She hissed, glancing at Jalen like she couldn't believe he dared meet me. I didn't respond. She sat without asking, grabbing the edge of the table. You need to stop this. You've taken things too far. You don't understand what you're doing. Her voice trembled, but not from remorse. From sheer panic. I told her I was not protecting the retreat. I was not protecting her secrets. I was not participating in a system that cornered me in a parking lot and tried to force me into silence. She insisted I was ruining everything. She insisted she could fix it. She insisted she could smooth things over. Jalen finally cut her off. You can't fix it. You're pretending this is smaller than it is. She turned on him immediately. You don't know what they'll do if this gets out. He leaned back, almost defeated. I don't care anymore. The tension was thick enough to make the whole cafe feel smaller. I stood up, ready to leave the table before another scene erupted. Danae grabbed my arm. I pulled it away. I'm ending the engagement, I said simply. Her face broke, not into tears, but into a look of raw disbelief that her life wasn't bending back into the shape she wanted. You can't do that, she whispered. I already did. I walked out. Jalen followed me outside, stopping me on the sidewalk. They're not going to take this quietly, he warned. But I'm done. If they try anything, I'll tell the administration everything. That was the moment the story shifted from personal betrayal to something much bigger, a chain reaction neither of us could fully control. By the afternoon, the fallout began. The retreat group flooded my phone with messages, now slipping into angry threats masked as concern. They insisted I stop spreading lies. They insisted I return the phone. They insisted everyone knew the rules, and this was consensual chaos and not anyone's business. Then, unexpectedly, 2 students messaged me privately. Both said they were tired of the retreat leaders controlling everything. Both said they were pressured into things they regretted. Both said if this turned into an official complaint, they would testify. That was the tipping point. I filed a formal report, not out of revenge, out of necessity. The administration responded faster than I expected. Other complaints came in, completely separate from mine. Students who had stayed silent for months suddenly stepped forward. The retreat collapsed within days. The organizers were removed from their positions. Several students were suspended for misconduct. The university launched a full review of the program. And Danae? She faced disciplinary action for violating behavioral conduct agreements related to the retreat and for participating in events that broke multiple campus rules. Her academic standing plummeted. Her scholarships were reviewed. Her reputation inside the department cracked. She tried contacting me again and again, messages, calls, long paragraphs about second chances, but I never replied. I gathered my things from our shared apartment, closed every account we shared, and moved into a smaller place closer to work. Life didn't snap back to normal overnight, but leaving her made it feel possible again. A month later, I received a final message. It was from someone I didn't know. Thank you. I was scared to speak up. You gave us a way out. I didn't respond. I didn't need to. Everything that needed to end had ended.